Okay, I am here today to show you how to do this this punch needle art form. It is in a lot of ways similar to cross stitching, but I think it's easier. It has proven to be it takes a little bit of time to get the knack of it, but once you get it, you can make a project in an hour or two versus many, many hours, as cross stitch can often take. So, this first little video is just going to be a setup video, so I'll show you kind of what you need and how to get ready to go, and then on the next video I'll show you how to actually make the punch needle product. So, first of all, the things that you need are just a few. You need an embroidery hoop like this, and you can get it in any size depending on what it is you're wanting to draw, and then punch. What design you want to do will dictate how big your hoop should be. You're going to need embroidery floss or embroidery thread in the colors that you need for the design that you're making. They sell big kind of bulk bags of this at most craft stores, so that's usually what I do, and then I have pretty much any color that I need. But you also can buy them one by one and just go for like 50 cents or so, maybe $1 each. Pretty inexpensive. You can go pick out specifically the colors that you want. I'm going to be using these colors today. You'll need a pencil, and you will need the fabric. So you can use different fabrics. I've played around with a few different kinds. I made one with leftover, like an old, well not old, a new bed sheet, like a cheap bed sheet that I bought at Walmart, and just cut a little piece out of it because I wanted it to be white. It worked, but it's not probably the best material to use. I'm learning as I do this that kind of how holey your fabric is makes it harder or easier. And so what I've settled on, as you can see in the background here, this is a linen, and it's a linen that's specifically kind of geared for this punch needle work. So I found it on the embroidery aisle with the punch needle set. And that's what I would recommend, especially if you're just starting out, because it's just kind of the right density. Like you need it to be open enough that the needle will punch through it, because it's kind of a big needle. Could like probably cauterize a vein with that thing. So you want it to have big enough holes that will penetrate it, but you also don't want it to be so loose, because when you pull the needle back through, you need the embroidery thread to stay in the fabric. So it's call it the Goldilocks material. It needs to be just the right amount of holey. So I'll put a link on the website that shows what I bought. I got mine actually at Michael's, and it's not cheap. You get just not an awful lot of it. Got this piece, probably 2 or 3 feet by 1 or 2 feet, so not a lot of it, and I want to say it was like $8 before I used a coupon. So, moral of that story is you should probably use a coupon on this. It wasn't any cheaper at Hobby Lobby either. Now, one thing I haven't done is gone just to the bolts of fabric and found linen and bought it kind of by the larger yardage, so that might be a good option too. So, okay, the last thing that you're going to need, pull this up, is the punch needle itself. So there are all different kinds of these. There's different brands. I went with this Artiste brand. I got mine at Hobby Lobby. It's $15. I used a coupon, so it was less than 10. And you can use it over and over and over. It doesn't expire or wear out or use up. So it's maybe a little bit pricey, but if you use it enough, it's totally worth it. So it comes with the punch needle itself, and it comes with 3 of these little needles. I'll show you. In 3 different sizes. So there's a kind of a small, medium, and large in this kit, and those correspond to 1.3 millimeter, 1.6 millimeter, and 2.2 millimeter needles. I'm using the middle size, or the 1.6 millimeter. So very little I've kind of learned through doing this a few times is the density of the fabric and the thickness of the yarn that you want to use will control which needle you need to use. So this middle needle seems to work pretty well for my combination of fabric and thread. Okay, so that's what you're going to need. So to just kind of finish getting set up here, you're going to take your embroidery hoop and just set it. You want to have a little extra over the side so you can glue it. You have enough room to kind of pull it tight and then glue it at the end, but you don't want to waste much fabric, so kind of get it like an inch from either corner and then push the inside part through nice and tight. If you need to tighten it more, you just twist this little guy. Mine's pretty good. And then just cut. This doesn't need to be pretty, don't cut too close, but again, like an inch or so from the hoop. There you go. You just don't want to have to mess with all of that excess fabric while you work. Okay, and then you need to decide what kind of design you want to do. So I'm going to do a real simple, get my pencil here. I'm going to do a rainbow. So I'm just going to kind of draw. And this does not have to be perfect. It won't show. And as you go, you know, as you punch, you can follow it where you want to follow it and not follow it where you don't want to follow it. So really, I think that may be kind of the only one I need, because I'll just follow my line as I punch. But I kind of, I'll go ahead, I kind of want it to come like that in the end. Okay. So I'll start with my first color on the outside, and then as I stitch inward, I'll just follow my own lines, and that'll be pretty easy. So that's all ready to go. Now the last thing that you need to do is get your needle ready to go. So this has a couple different parts. Mine came assembled like this. The needle's down here. The other part that I'll point out is that on the end down here on the handle, there are little bitty markings that show numbers, and what those indicate is basically how deep the needle will punch into the fabric, therefore how big the loops of fabric will be. And so the smaller numbers mean that you've got it twisted out quite a ways, and so your needle is very short, so it will only punch through the fabric a little bit and leave a small loop. If you twist it in all the way, you can see now your needle is really long. It's going to punch a long way through the fabric, pull back out, and leave a long loop. So for this project, I'm going to use probably a 4, because I want kind of smaller loops, but depending on what you're making, you can go for shorter or longer. If you go really, really short, I'll caution you, it's a little bit harder to keep the fabric from pulling back, or the thread rather, from pulling back through the fabric, because you just have less on the other side to hold itself to. So, okay, so in order to get this needle ready to go, to essentially thread the needle, you're going to unscrew this part all the way, pull it out, and you can see this is just a housing. And here we have the needle and then the inner part of the housing. So if you twist the needle, it will come out. Okay, so then you've got these 3 parts. So really, all there is to this is you've just got to get your thread through the housing, through the needle, or through the inner part, through the needle, and then put the housing back on. So I'm going to grab my first color, and I'm going to start with green. Really drawn to jewel tones. Okay, so I've got my green thread here. Now, one other thing that I did not mention that the kit comes with are these wire threaders. Okay, so mine came with 2. I can see how they'd be very easy to lose. It's just a wire loop, but that's how you're going to thread this. It would be impossible to just by hand thread this all the way through all that stuff. So you take your thread, put it into that wire, and kind of tug it down into the elbow of that wire, and then grab the other end and feed it through the housing for, or the interior part of the housing first, the innards. Okay, and then you pull that through. And then you feed it through the needle of the size that you want. Pull it through. And then you're not quite done with the needle yet. There's a little bitty hole in the tip of the needle, and you also want to feed it through that. Okay, so once you've gotten to this point, you can pull the thread out of the little threader, put that aside, don't lose it. I've already lost one of mine because they're basically invisible. And then you just assemble your pin here. So pop the needle back into the inner part here, twist it to lock it in. It's nice and secure. And then I pull the thread so there's only about an inch hanging out. Then put the housing over the top of everything, twist it on. You can see there's your thread coming through there. And then again, back to the numbers here, I want mine set at about a 4. So there is that. And now you are ready to start.